Well, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, depending upon where you are. I see if we've got from St. Kitts and Trinidad. So obviously for you guys, it's afternoon. And for Brazil, Jose, definitely afternoon as well. Turkey, we can see definitely late at night or very early morning, one or the other. And for those joining from here in the United States, welcome as well. Looking forward, if you can all type in where you are from. I love to know where we're participating from across the world. Welcome to this Engage and Grow webinar. We're talking obviously and looking at how we engage people and therefore how we grow businesses. It's not a complex algorithm, but it does take a lot of work and it does take a lot of energy. That being said, the results are well worth it. Now, you'll see a statement down the bottom here of let's go green. What does that actually mean, let's go green? Well, we're going to be discussing and looking at today how it is that we as business people can help our teams go green. And whether you're from a sporting background or a business background, that's definitely what we're looking at and saying, okay, how do we get to that green status? How do we get that? And what does green look and feel like? How do we make that a reality for our people? Guatemala in the building. For those of you who haven't typed in where you're at, I'd love to know where you are at. That is fantastic. Thanks for typing in those who already have. So let's get an overarching view of what it is we're aiming to achieve here today in our education process. What we're looking to do is understand what it means to take a team from that red to green. Now, let me give you a little bit of a background as to where this started, because it started in a sporting arena. And in the sports world, looking at the performance of a team, you either have full engagement or your team doesn't win. You either have full engagement. Now, the advantage sporting teams do have over us in business is that they have weekly combat. They have a weekly game where they get to play against another team, or even more often than weekly in some sports, and find out how good they are or how not well they're performing as a team. So we're going to go through the process that shows the 6 steps and the methodology by which we here at Engage and Grow help companies become fully engaged. We take companies from that red right through to the green, and taking you through those 6 steps today is really what we're aiming to achieve. My goal is that you will, by the end of this, have an understanding of what it looks like to move a team from red to green. And maybe some of your team is in orange in the middle type thing. You know, they're in that middle zone. But either way, you're going to understand the process by which a disengaged team moves through a fully engaged team, and where a company that's not in growth mode moves into growth mode in a big way. So phenomenal to have you here with us. Thank you for joining. Ireland in the building. Good to see you there. Thanks, Claire. So what is the 6 steps to employee engagement, and what does it actually start with? Well, it's a process, obviously. Evaluation is step 1. Getting buy-in is step 2. Then we move through, and again, I'm going to go through each of these in detail here with you today. We move through to unite, where we bring people together and we then start to align them, moving towards a common goal and building that direction forward. The engagement then kicks in, and so the performance levels change. And then obviously with growth, we need that never-ending, consistent improvement and growth of the organization. But that breaking that down and saying, okay, the equality at the beginning there, and actually moving people from separate and distinct into unity. You'll see a lot of companies talk about diversity and inclusion. We here at Engage and Grow take that through to unity, because we think that that's an important aspect of how a company will grow. We're not going to talk about that much today. You can look at some of our other webinars on diversity, inclusion, and unity as well to understand more about that side of how that happens in companies. By the way, if there is any point in time here where you have a question about anything that we are going over, I'd love to have you give us your feedback and ask those questions anytime during the process. Now, and by the way, I will keep some time at the end for questions. So if you type them in now, I will be able to get to them by the end of the session, or hopefully I can answer them during the session with you. So developing a high performance team takes us through these 6 steps. And really what we're aiming to do is give you an idea of how you move through those 6 steps today. So when we think about equality, unity, trust, and truth, and moving people in that direction, a lot of the times people say, oh, it's so hard to move people. Well, not really. You see, people love performing. People love getting great results. People love being in a place where they're doing great things, achieving great things. People love feeling good about themselves. And so to move them to a place where they're able to achieve and able to feel good about themselves is really a strong thing. So our goal here is not against what people want. People do want to perform. They do want to be able to add value. They want these things as a natural part of life. And so what we're aiming to do is bring that out. We're aiming to, in many ways, remove the barriers to those people achieving their level of greatness. It's hard sometimes to think about it, but it's not, sometimes it's not just what you have to do to make them a high performer. It's what you have to remove and what barriers you have to take down in order for them to get to the place where they can be a high performer. So let's break that down then into these 6 steps and how they work. Within the framework of the employee experience or the employee journey in any organization, obviously there is a phase of growth. Now, that when you're attracting a new employee and bringing that new team member on board, your onboarding of that new team member is extremely important. The onboarding leads to engagement, which then obviously you're going to develop that person and develop their skill set, develop their love for the business, develop their abilities, all of the different aspects that get developed within the business to get them to a level of high performance. Now, this is on an individual basis, but that individual performance fits with a much broader scale of the team. And that's why that alumni is also very important there. It's important to understand that the alumni, those who've been, will help you attract new team members. The alumni will also help you with mentoring existing team members. Some of the greatest things I've seen happening in the trends now is that alumni are kept as mentors for existing team members. And we take the best of what they have and build it with the best of the new team. So this employee journey, it has to fit within the overall or overarching part of the organization. And it's really important to understand that every employee's journey will be different, but they need to have a plan and be the same to fit within the 6 steps. All right. So now we start with red, but that doesn't mean we assume everyone in a company is red. Now, what does red really look like? Well, again, I'll go back to our sporting roots and talk about how this actually came about, the red, orange, or red, yellow, green. When first of all placed in this scenario, a sporting team, and we won't name names, we have a lot of clients around the world, but you can go on our website and just see who some of the largest companies in the world are that use us here at Engage and Grow. But when we look at a sporting team and we ask each player on the team to rate each other player, now this is done in anonymity, so no one knows who says what, but we ask them all to rate everyone else on the team as who's here for themselves and who's here for the team. Obviously, if someone gets every single player on the team vote for them that they're here for themselves, well, that's a red. Okay, so if every single person, and by the way, that does happen. If we go to the yellow, that's the people where some people said they're here for themselves and others said they're here for the team. And finally, the green are the players that are all here for the team. Now, in obviously a sporting environment, we can do this at a very high level because it is a very, very tight-knit group. Now, again, it's done in anonymity, but it leads to the team starting to ask themselves questions. You know, who is red? Am I one of the reds? Am I orange? Does everyone think I'm here for the team, or do most people think I'm here for myself? And that's where we started this whole process. Now, when we look at engagement of a team in a sporting environment, it can be done at that very intense and almost aggressive nature of putting people into that evaluation. When it's done in business, employee engagement is done differently. what we have to do with the evaluation phase is obviously ask our team members where they're at, okay? To set the benchmark, to start the process of saying, okay, here is where we're at. And one of the great things that we get to do when we work with you is that we actually get to establish that benchmark with your team. And it's really interesting if you're a human resources manager or a CEO or a C-level exec right now and you want to do that, please reach out to the Engage and Grow team or whoever put you on this webinar and have them take you and your team through that survey process. But it's interesting when we go and look at the statistics around employee engagement, how you would think with all of this technology, with all of these tools, that employee engagement would be getting better. It is, but nowhere near at the rate it needs to be able to deliver the high performance. And I guess one of the big reasons I see for that is a lot of it is done through technology. It's not humans helping humans become engaged. And I think that's one of the big advantages of the Engage and Grow program is exactly that. But how do we do this? All right, so let's take a look at some of the first steps that you will need to take in order to turn your business into a highly engaged machine. Now, let's imagine that you do the survey and your team comes back that there's a percentage of people highly engaged, a percentage of people who are sort of engaged, and a percentage of people who are disengaged, and then even a percentage of people who are actively disengaged, meaning they're sabotaging. They're not only not really engaged, they're actually actively working against what's going on. Now, hopefully you don't have much of that going on in your organization, but every now and again, when we come into companies, we do look at that. So why do we do the evaluation phase? Well, the fact that, you know, for me, even I look at it as a CEO of a company, do I have my finger on the pulse every day? Even though I ask and listen, do I get feedback that is, let's say, what they want, what they think I want to hear, rather than actually what's going on? And so that listening and understanding what's going on is very important, but asking people in different ways and getting to know. And I guess it takes a very courageous leader to confront employee engagement, because if you're not courageous, you're probably not going to want to listen to some of the things that will be said. I know when we've taken some of these surveys in some companies and you get the feedback and you go, oh, you can fight the feedback. You can try and deny the feedback. You can do that. And that's why Leadership 360 is in our Leader of Leaders program. Taking a look at a Leadership 360, it takes a courageous leader to do this. To achieve your vision, though, also takes a courageous leader. The old, you know, a ship is very safe in the port type thing, but that's not what ships are made for. Most C-level execs and most business owners didn't start their business to hide behind something. They started it to be that courageous person. So the evaluation phase gives us that benchmark, okay? From that benchmark, we obviously need to move. Now, I know for us, when we do most of our Red Belt programs, what we do is a 12-week program in businesses, because we believe it takes that level of time, a quarter, 12 weeks, 90 days, to get that movement and momentum. So what we're doing now is we're creating a group accountability. What we're aiming to do as step 2 is, you know, they're still in the red in most cases, but we're moving them forward, okay? So the old thing of, you know, a business or a team is only at the level of its weakest link. If we have an organization, and let's just boil it down to a 10-person organization just for ease of conversation. If I said, okay, I've got 3 people at green, 5 people at yellow, and that leaves me with 2 people in red, well, we have to move the red first. We can't just aim to get the yellows to green. The reds have to come with us, or they have to leave. And I know in some companies, it's like, well, what you're going to find when we raise the bar in a company, when you raise the standards, the minimum performances, the standards and norms of the organization change, what you find is that some people self-deselect. I think it was possibly put best In the book American Icon, Alan Mulally talked about he's never fired anyone. He's just helped people make their decision more obvious. You know, some people do leave a company or do leave an organization, but let's be blunt, they left and checked out. So these in this red phase, the people in that red level of disengagement or active disengagement, we need to move them first and foremost to get the whole organization to green. So that's step one of the process. So how does collective accountability actually happen? Well, let's think about this just for a moment. It's kind of like a lot of the C words here, but we're taking that purpose of the organization and making it a reality. We're giving it's a lot about communication and collaboration right here. We're actually standing tall and proud with what the company is all about. What is the company doing? What are we, where are we going? What is our vision? What is our purpose? Who are we and why are we here? You know, in this day and age, a company's purpose needs to be more of a mission than it is a goal of a certain set of numbers. It needs to be about something more than just making a few dollars or making euros or whatever, your currency is. When the team knows what's expected of them and they know where they need to go, and I've often said that if you sit down with your top 10 people and you have them sit across the table from you and you ask them to write a list of what are the top 10 things that they think their job is about, and at the same time you write a list of the top 10 things you think their job is about, question that has to be then asked is, what percentage of their list do you think will match your list? But when someone knows what is expected of them, how they're going to be measured, what success looks like in their job, then it's much easier for them to perform. You know, once that communication happens, once all of that starts moving, and that's why a lot of people, we see a trend of people saying, oh, we don't need more meetings. Well, what we need is better communication. Sometimes meetings, most meetings would be great if there was great communication skills. The challenge is we're not applying great communication skills. So I know when we bring people together through the 12-week process, we open up communication channels, okay? We allow for those people to move into real-time adjustments. And if you go back to, I think it was Tony Hsieh of Zappos fame, may he rest in peace, but Tony talked about collisions, you know, where people would just have conversations. They run into each other at the water cooler and they have a little conversation. Those little collisions that happen when we open things up and when we start communication. Now, does this mean that we're going to need to discuss things that people don't want to discuss? Yes, we're going to have to be honest. We're going to have to be open about, hey, this isn't working and it's not working. And here's what we need to do about it. Not with blame, not with excuses, not with denial of what's going on, but with openness to really see how we can generate massive performance from the organization and from those people. So step 2 is moving us from red, okay? It's really confronting, communicating, collaborating, opening up channels to align ourselves with that purpose. Giving people purpose, giving people clarity and direction allows for buy-in. It's hard to get buy-in if there's nothing to buy into. It's hard to kick a goal if we don't know where the goalposts are. So setting those goals, giving people purpose, showing them the mission and leading them there is really what we're about at this point in time. Now, where does that take us? Well, here's the next step on the thing. Once we move to yellow, what we start to see is how we unite, okay? Now, again, another C word, connections, meaningfulness in our connections with each other. So you've obviously seen this when there's connections, but it's not meaningful. When there's a, oh, hi, how you doing? Good. And that's it. There's no, well, I'm feeling great. Okay, what made you feel great today? Oh, what's, that there is a connection, but it doesn't go to meaningful steps. It doesn't go deeper than that. And so what we have to do to bring a team together is to be different from that. We have to get to that meaningful level of connectivity. And this is where I am a firm believer in the engage and grow philosophy of humans helping humans become engaged, not technology, not anything like that. Like, even when we run our meetings, there's no pens and paper, it's conversations. We don't want you taking notes. We want you opening up and connecting with each other. And some people are like, what do you mean no pen and paper? How do we run a meeting with no pen and paper? What are we going to do? Well, we're going to actually connect. Now, when the connection really starts to happen, when people, they get together outside of work, they become friends. There is a level of connectivity that is different to what it normally is in most organizations. And so we as a team at Engage and Grow believe wholeheartedly in this. And it's why the third step is often one of the hardest, because it's taking a level of vulnerability on behalf of the team. It's taking leadership acts that allow us to open that door and to invite people into our world, not just into our high. It's like the old, if you think of it as an iceberg, that there's the old saying of, 80% of the iceberg is below the water. You only get to see the top 10 or 20% of the iceberg. And humans are very similar like that, in that we get to see that top 10 or 20% of them at work, but we don't delve deeper than that. And I think that's an important aspect of what we're looking at. Now, from the Unite step, where we open people's hearts and minds and get that vulnerability out, and we're still moving in the direction of our purpose and starting to, really create. Well, now what we're aiming to do with that connectivity is take that connectivity to that meaning and take it to that shared vision. The purpose now becomes much stronger. And if we dive into a couple of the details around this, what we're thinking about here, and I'm pretty sure you will understand that as history takes us back, we could see a period in time in business where if the business was just about making money, that was okay. When baby boomers were first into business, if you had a job and you were told what to do, that was it. Today, our team members need more meaning in what they do. Our team members come to work to contribute, not just to earn a living. They come to help make a better society, not just to earn to pay their bills and that sort of thing. So that level of engagement is very much dependent upon what meaning there is associated with coming to work. Do they see what they're doing as changing the business landscape? Like for me and my team at Engage and Grow, we see what we do as creating a highly engaged workforce. And that brings happiness, it brings health, it brings so many different things. When we put out the video that employee engagement can change the world, we weren't kidding about that. We're not just, playing a game about that. I believe firmly that employee engagement, human engagement, taking it to that next step. If you haven't seen that video, jump on our website, engageandgrow.com, and take a look and understand what we mean about human engagement. Because really, if you're going to invest that much time at work, and I ask every one of you that's on here now, if you can type in for me, what percentage of your life do you perceive you invest in working environment? What percentage of your day, week, month, year, or life do you think you're going to put into your work? And if you're going to put that percentage into your work, you obviously want to be highly engaged. You want to be passionate. You want to be motivated and to be able to perform at a high level. I'm looking for numbers here, gang. Type them in for me. Jose, what's your number? Olga, what's your number? We're getting 70%. That is a bunch, especially if you look at it as waking hours, I guess, with waking hours, definitely. 40s and 60s, definitely. When we start thinking about that amount of our life, we want that. And so we're removing that indifference. We're getting people out of overwhelm into going after their goals, into going after the company's mission and all of those different things. So thanks for typing in your numbers, gang. If that's going to be the case, then obviously we keep growing and we keep stepping through. If we get away from that negative, it brings up so much more positives. The collaboration and communication, the more collaboration we get, the more collaboration we get. It's like it goes on a roll. The better the communication, the better the communication. Everything gets on a roll and starts moving in that direction. And it's like, you know, in the book Good to Great, where he talked about, you know, the flywheel. Once you start this team moving in that direction, it's very hard to pull them back. Once they're going on that road, it's like you've started the train. Well, your team is going to keep moving in that direction. So, you know, when you look at their overall performance, it's very obvious that they're moving in the right direction. And that's why we end up with moving up to the green level. So again, 2 levels in green to make our 6 levels very realistic to you. If you look at the engage level, this is where they're at engage. It's where performance starts to keep climbing. It's where performance goes from okay to average to now high performance team, okay? Building a high performance team, that openness, that united front, that ability to say, we're now doing this for more than just a salary, we're doing something, we're going somewhere, is of such high importance that, well, let's again take a look at some of the details around this. What starts to happen at this level is that we really start to move in a direction together. And just like, you know, the people carrying the arrow there, you know, if everyone's moving in the same direction, it's easy to hit your bullseye. If everyone is going on the same path, moving and thinking in the same way, if everyone starts moving in that direction, then the achievement becomes much simpler. You know, people are now open, and if they're not trying to cover up what didn't happen, they're open, they're moving forward together. There's less blame. There's all of these things are starting to move. And if you could imagine your organization like this, where you've got a team of people who are all highly engaged and moving in the same direction, then you start to see, okay, this is what is happening and this is what we want. Now, if you're finding it difficult to picture that right now, maybe just jump on the Engage and Grow website and look at some of the stories of some of our teams that we've worked with around the world, and listen to what they say and watch their faces as they explain how engagement changed their business, how engagement changed their corporation and what it did for them. And I'm talking some of the biggest companies in the world down to some of the smallest mom and pop shops across the world using employee engagement. So we hit step 6. This is where we're in growth mode. And now our business is on a never-ending, or the constant never-ending improvement. The Japanese word, the Kaizen model, where we are continuously evolving and continuously growing. Now, I want you to just think just for a moment, okay? What would be the difference between a company with, say, 20% green, 50% yellow, and 30% in red, versus a company where the lowest common denominator is yellow? Let's imagine we could move everyone out of red, either by moving them up or, in some cases, moving them out. Okay, they self-deselect during the program. If we could move everyone up, and so the majority were now in green and there were still a few in yellow, what would it feel like in your organization if we could do that? What would it feel like for you as a leader? Yes, it does take courage to confront some of these things. But here's the big question for you. What would the performance of your organization be if you could move to that? Yes, you would move through to step 6. You would move through to continuous improvement and serious growth. Now, a couple of points about this that we have to understand. that high level engagement leads to so many other benefits that we don't even think of, okay? From safety benefits to customer satisfaction benefits, employee retention benefits, cost reductions, all of these things that come about because we have a higher level of performance in the organization. So, you know, when TechJury did their survey and released that a company with a high level of engagement actually has a profitability by 21% more, what does that tell us? Well, it means we all need to be courageous leaders. It means we need to step up and face employee engagement. I know when all of these webinars that I've done over the years of looking at engagement and how companies grow, it really does sit us back and say, you know what? We can't hide from this. We can't run away from this. We actually have to make a decision that says, do we need high-level employee engagement? When you go back just a couple of years from now, or a couple of years back, and we sit down and we say, okay, what happened with the Great Resignation and you know, all of these different things? And again, you can apply different things. I did a whole webinar on this one as well. But when you apply those subjects and you start to think of what it is that builds a great company, well, it's great people. Great people build a great company, okay? But if you are to recruit and maintain and keep great people, they want to be in a place where they feel valued. They want to be in a place where they feel like they're actually performing. And that's what high employee engagement feels like. So it's really important for us to understand that this is not something that we can say, yeah, maybe I should do that engagement thing. Maybe I should confront that stuff. And, you know, either way, you've got to start to say, this is what we've done. So if we can build the employee experience into employee engagement, what might happen in the organization? Now, whether you study this whole program or whether you follow a different program or whether you come back and work with the people that have sent you this webinar or sent you to this webinar, I think that at some level, you're going to have to say, okay, how do we move our reds into yellow and how do we move our yellows into greens and how do we keep our greens from wanting to leave because there are reds and there are yellows? I mean, I was chatting with a business owner just recently, and he has a very large company, a high-level CEO of his own business. And I was asking him a question about his team, and you know, he was complaining about a certain team member. And I said, well, what do you think is the message your team gets by that person still being on the team? And he's like, hang on, what do you mean? I said, well, you're allowing that behavior in your organization. So I'm not allowing it. It just happened. I said, whoa, hold on a second. The fact that you are allowing that person to be in your team, on your team, knowing what you know about their behavior and the way that their behavior impacts other people. In other words, what are the greens thinking when they see you allow reds on the team? What do the greens feel about coming to work when they go, I don't know why I put so much effort in when, you know, these other people don't do anything, you know, and that level of challenge is something that we have to confront every day as executives or as business owners. So a couple more points around this. We've put this into an ebook. If you would like the ebook, please just jump on Engage and Grow and download it. I think that understanding that going over this multiple times, in fact, take the ebook and give it to your team, okay? In fact, get the replay of this webinar and allow your team to watch that as well. Share this information. One of the hardest things as a leader is thinking you have to go there alone. You don't have to go there alone. You can share this information with your team and allow them to do it. So whether it's the ebook or, in fact, I'll get the team to put the ebook link up in the chat window if I can, just to make sure that everyone downloads that and shares that with their team. Because if you do that, I think that having the conversations will move in that direction. And yeah, I think that that's a pretty important aspect to doing that. Now, this methodology is something that we use. Now, you don't have to use the exact same as us, But you have to understand that those who are in red need to move up or out. Those who are in yellow need to move up. And, you know, we need to onboard new people so that they can go to green. Some of our new people, you can't assume new people start at green. And we definitely assume they don't start at red. You know, allowing negative behavior is what allows them to move down to red. When they first start with you, they start in that honeymoon phase. They want to go green, allow them to go green. But I think that's a really important aspect of what we're doing. So if you think about doing this process, what did I say was the last one? Constant improvement. If you want to stay in growth, to keep them engaged, you can't just stop there. It's something that, you know, management and leadership teams have to confront day in and day out, that if we, in order to keep being engaged, we need to keep moving, and we need to move with the times. Do values shift? Yes, values shift. Does economy shift? Yes, economy shift. Does market shift? Do products and services change? All of these things change. So it's not something we get there and we, oh, we're green, good, we can stop now. We made it to green. Everything's good. Yep, done. No, it doesn't quite work that way. Have companies that were green at one point in time gone back to red? Yes. Yes, they have. It's a constant and never-ending improvement is what we're looking to do. Creating an atmosphere of growth is stage one. Getting them from that to there is stage one. Keeping them there is really the second phase to it. So going from red to green, let's just give you a full summary of that here. The 6 steps, the whole process of doing this thing. Remember, we start with setting the benchmarks. From there, we move to looking at a collective accountability, knowing where we're going and that it's going to take everybody to get there. Then we want to move people through to making connectivity with each other and meaningful level of connection, not just hi, but, you know, actually talking about life and the universe and friends and family and getting into that level of discussion. That leads us to the alignment of the vision of the organization. And of course, that's assuming the organization does have a vision that's greater than just make this amount of money, you know, assuming that you as an executive lead your team on a path to somewhere of meaning. Okay. Then the high performance kicks in once we've bought in and we've done that. So the reds have either moved up or out. The yellows are now starting to become more engaged, more aligned. They're united in their front of moving together. And that engagement then leads to growth. If you think of what building a team with unity, trust, and truth is all about, you can feel this difference as we move through the whole process. So what I'd like to do is answer your questions. Now, I know before we do the webinar, we also ask some of you for questions. I've got 2 of them here, and if any of you have other questions to ask. First question is, and I've touched on this a little during the webinar, but I'll touch on it again. Brad, why do you talk about technology being a stopping force to engagement? You know, technology doesn't stop engagement, but it definitely hinders engagement. You know, we've moved into this more virtual world, and people have said, oh, well, you know, look, we can work on Zoom meetings together and we can use web and we can do all of these different things. Well, what companies are finding out now after a year or 2 of being in that scenario, if they haven't already brought everyone back into an office scenario, most of them are moving in that direction now. Because what they're learning is that, yes, it was okay in a virtual world when people had worked together and eaten lunches together and hung out together and been to sporting games and talked and met over the water cooler type thing. If I'd worked with someone for 2, 3, 4, 5 years in a face-to-face scenario and then went virtual, I already had that emotive relationship with people. Now, if we hire people and we bring them into the organization and say, oh, hang on a sec, these people have never actually physically met. They've never sat down and broken bread. They've never actually gone for a coffee together type thing. It's very hard in that virtual world to do that. So I won't say technology stops engagement, but it definitely hinders engagement. And technology solutions are really the solution. We have found, and we continue to find every day, that humans leading humans is what builds engagement in an organization. Second question that I got before, obviously someone, I don't have a name here, sorry, of who sent this question in. But the second question is, do those in the red have to move up or out, or can you keep them? I have one, and the example here says, I have one team member who is definitely in red, but we need his skill in the organization. Great question. You know, when we think of, we go back to Dysfunctions of a Team, great little book. And in the 5 dysfunctions of a team, it has a whole session there on keeping people who are toxic to the organization. You know, what does it take? The old one bad apple scenario type thing, one cancer cell leads to. My personal opinion is that the only way you can ever keep someone who is in red but is a valuable knowledge source is if you move them into a consulting role and they go off and start their own operation, but work somehow adding value back into the company, but they're not part of the day-to-day organization anymore. That being said, I rarely find that works long-term either. It can be a good short-term solution. I guess the reason for this, and you know, how do I put this politely? Well, maybe I should just be blunt about it, because that's what it takes to unite. We've got to actually confront those things. Leaving that person in your organization actually speaks to the values of your company more than what you've written up on the wall. What you put up on the wall is one thing. What you do day to day is what really shows the values of your organization. So you get to choose that. And the courage to ask someone to leave an organization that has already checked out is really not that hard. It's, you know, but if you weren't scared by it, it's not courage anyway. So take that step on board. Next question, Brad, when it comes to tackling the lack of connection due to hybrid or remote working, what would you advise leaders to do or to be? Look, there are ways to combat this, and some of the ways are, you know, that hybrid, when you are doing, you know, don't just do the virtual, use a hybrid methodology and bring people into scenarios together. For example, let's think about companies that have multiple offices. You know, when you have multiple offices around a country or around the world, and you bring your people together for, you know, quarterly planning or annual planning or a quarterly retreat or these sorts of things. You don't have to have them together face to face every day, but you need them somehow face to face at some point in time. You need people to be able to have the collisions or the connections that can only happen when they are human to human, belly to belly, face to face. So, you know, do as much of that as you can. That being said, also in your virtual world, allocate some time to breakout rooms. I've found that when we run events online, breakout rooms are some of the most important parts of it. If I've got 30 or 40 people on a Zoom session, I do breakout rooms where I put them into groups of 2, 3, or 4 so that they discuss things at a smaller level. Then they get to meet. Think of breakout rooms in those as a virtual collision type thing. You're creating a virtual collision in the organization. That's basically the way that I tackle that, and that's the way I would suggest you look at it too. Listen, it's been great to have you on the webinar today. I really appreciate you taking your time to join us. If you have any questions about how to apply the 6 steps, please get back with the coach or the team member that brought you to this webinar or sent you a copy of this webinar. Look forward to it. Make sure you download that ebook and share that with your team so that you can get a group buy-in to understand exactly what it is you're aiming to achieve. Take care. Bye for now. Keep being courageous, keep engaging, and keep growing.